Hey, welcome back to Spoolheads Racing. Today we're talking about 180-degree open track turns. I've been working on my own open track turn. A little bit of history behind the open track turns that I've printed is the first one that I ever printed was 3D Botmaker's Magtrack open track turn. And that looks like this right here. It's designed to be closer to like a 3-lane wide car as compared to the Crash Racers, which is 2. Kind of an old piece for me, vintage. It's flat coming into the turn, but then it's got some grooves on the top part right here, and then it comes out. It's a much tighter radius than the Crash Racer set, and it also is very, very steep. It's a very steep edge right there. So that was my start of using 180-degree open track turns. Please don't shoot me while my son's like got a 3D printed gun and right behind the camera. He's like, pow, pow, pow. Ah!
It's called a DC-17.
A DC-17. The next open track turn that I started using was the Crash Racer set. Let me pull one of those. In comparison to the Magtrack turn, you see it's a much wider radius. Some of the things with the Crash Racer set that I love is that really at high speeds it works really well. But the challenges that I faced with it is that this ridge right here isn't wide enough for cars going slow to be able to make it through the turn. It's also a flat piece. But you can kind of spin it, and it works really well. That's one advantage to it, is that it stays together even if you have a elevation drop. So I see a lot of people using it like this and twisting it a little bit. So that's certainly one advantage with it. When 3D printing track, it's hard to be able to design track that's flexible like that. So then you have to build that into the design. And the other thing about it, I've got this piece right here, is that it's still a very steep bank right there. I mean, when it's flat, it's, I don't know, like 80 degrees or maybe even 90 degrees, almost right at the, straight up and down, right at the top of it. And so what happens is when cars, I need a car.
Daddy.
When cars are coming through it, that's the flattest they can go. And if I just put that like totally flat, like there's just not enough space for slow cars to make it through these turns. And so we see a lot of cars that just fall.
Over.
They just fall over. What's your name again? Your fake name. Bobbert. He's going to be called Bobbert, according to Bobbert.
No, actually.
By the way, I have a live audience today. They're all right here. You don't see them, but they're all making faces at me. The next thing I did was I made and 3D printed a monster turn. It's so big. It's large.
It's like a U.
I can take this off right here and just show you a little bit of the differences between it.
Dad, it's like a U.
It's like a big U. So this one right here, I've got a space right on the edge for cars to just make it through. So even cars that are slow, they can make it through. And then the other thing is that with the suggestion of Tom Spanish from Chaos Canyon, we decided to not make the top ridge as high or as steep right there. On the Crash Racers, if it's going slow enough, it'll come up here and then just tip over. So this gives a better opportunity to just slide down if it's going too slow without tipping. And I also put 5 ridges on this. I don't know if you can see the ridges.
Russells need ridges.
Russells need ridges. I think the ridges worked pretty well. I really think the track's corners need ridges, but in an effort to be able to figure out how important ridges really are, I've made some changes. So one problem with this track is that it was like 72 hours to print. Use like $16 of filament. It's like monster compared to the Crash Racers. Let's hold the Crash Racers up. It's like massive.
It's like an uppercase U. And
it's the same diameter. What letters do we have?
An uppercase U and a lowercase U.
This is the difference between an uppercase U and a lowercase u, according to Bobbert. The Crash Racer set has a bank. It starts on a bank. It doesn't start flat. And so the idea with this one is that it would start completely flat. And so that was dialed into it. Sir James Dyson, I was listening to a podcast in which he was talking about his creative process of engineering and the Dyson vacuum. He says you only make one change at a time when you're doing changes and iterations. And guess what? I threw that completely out the window. I made this piece right here. Same diameter. I shortened it so that it's flat. I don't have enough hands. I shortened it so it's flat coming in right here. It's only 4 pieces instead of 6. I did a better job of supporting it with less filament. I'm really happy with a lot of how that's going. I've got clamps on it still because I need to go buy some M4 screws to be able to tie it together. I just didn't have enough time to make it to the hardware store. This is the latest. Okay, I changed a couple things. One is that it's a shorter distance going into the turn. I just didn't like how far it extended. And so it's flat going into there. So I don't know how that's going to react. I took off all the grooves. I'm really curious to see how it's going to go. And another was I shortened this inside wall so that you had a better view of the cars going through that section. What do you think's going to happen with this? I don't know. We're going to put it into the track, run some races. The big question is whether or not cars are just going to slip and slide all the way through it and spin, or whether they're going to get high and immediately go low because there's no ridge, and we'll figure it out from there. And then I'll start adding ridges into the processes to make sure the ridges are doing exactly what I want them to do and what they need to do without having too many of them. Here's one thing to consider when comparing these, is that this is the latest open track turn, and that's the crash racers. Thank you. Crash racers. Everyone's crash racers. One other challenge with this is that I've made my turns 180 degrees when crash racers is not 180 degrees. I haven't measured it totally, but you can see how it sticks out. It comes out diagonally this way instead of up and down. This is designed for a crazy 8, infinite turning back and forth. This is designed to never cross again. I'd love to hear some opinions on what angle 180 degree turn should be. When you're making tracks and implementing these other pieces, we have to figure out how it fits together on people's tracks. All right, let's get it plugged in. All right, in these tests, I'm going to play each one in real time and then in slow motion so you can get a better idea of what's going on. Here, that Toyota truck, it's not a great truck for racing, but it still makes it through that turn. One thing I'm concerned about is with the shorter incline is if cars have enough time to turn. And it looks like this Datsun makes a little bit of contact up top with that top rail. Still turns around, but I'd like it to be cleaner. In this race right here, we have some tall profile cars, and they make quite a bit of contact and still make it all the way around, which is a great sign. This race is a pretty clean race. One thing I'm not loving is that all of the cars seem to be sliding towards the middle of the track about halfway through. They're not staying very high on the bank as they go through. This race here, I really want your opinion, whether it's a problem with the turn or just some great racing and contact that is incidental, which causes that car to flip right there. See if in slow motion, it looks like that Ford Bronco just has an inside ledge and just smashes the other car up against the top rail. I kind of think that that's part of racing, and that's a good balance there to see some action on the turn. This one right here, I've got some slow cars, and first two cars make it through cleanly. Then some sort of homemade Hot Wheels car. I don't know, it's got like a gummy top on it. It's weird, but then I've got this old Datsun, I think, and it's super slow. I don't know if it's got bent axles or something like that, but the good thing is it still makes it through the turn. Again, I feel like all cars should be able to make it through the turn. I don't want slow cars falling off the turn. It's super boring that way. All right, here we've got Ain't Fair and another large vehicle, I don't even know. But these two cars are pushing their way through it, and really no problem. At least they make it through. All right, we got our first pass of the night on this heat. This red car passes on the inside, but the white car's just hugging it all the way through, just pushing its way down. I don't know if I love that. All right, this one right here, I think is clear that the incline's too quick. This red car hits that so hard that it just flips, and it just flips and falls down right on the curve. Better than just falling off or going too slow, then I can just blame that on bad driving, but I think a little bit smoother incline is going to help that. All right, in this heat right here, there's two interesting things. I don't like how the Porsche is going up and down on the curve, and then notice how these two cars, when they're coming out, they're both at an angle. That's a really big common problem for crash racers in all these turns. All right, so one casualty of not having the grooves is this little car coming up. Got a really short wheelbase, and here it comes. It just never finds a groove in order to be able to turn downhill. So it doesn't make it through. Not great. All right, here's just a bunch of cars. I think the most interesting part of this is that last like food truck thing. It slides, starts high. Here it comes. It starts high and slides just right down. So that's a big case for grooves right there. Here's an angle that I was trying out from the Skyway. That's a new channel that's coming out. Got some promos that were showing an angle similar to this. Just playing around with it. But I do think it's fun to basically see all the cars by the middle of the turn are in the middle of the track mostly. Like they're already heading down. They're not staying up. Here's the version 1 turn, and you see how that's beautiful. I mean, those grooves really help it to keep its form all the way through. Even when it starts low, that Porsche started on the inside, still drifted down a little bit, but the grooves really help it stay up. This is really evidence that the grooves are really nice to help guide the cars through that turn. Even this really slow Datsun really gets high on the turn and comes all the way through without sliding down. And here's an Aston Martin versus a food truck right there. And even that food truck stays really nicely up there. So I'm going to add the grooves back in. It looks like I'm probably going to add all of them back in, I think. And to close it off, here's a big race. 5 cars flying through that turn, all in order. You're doing a great job with it. So my key takeaways is I think that the version 1 turn is a better turn. It just uses so much plastic. I just need to simplify that and try and figure out how to make the bank not take as much space. I just don't think a lot of people have that much room to start an entire turn. I just need to figure that out a little bit better. And I need to add the grooves back on. This is great evidence of why grooves help so much on the turns. Let me know what you think if you have any comments of things that I should be trying in order to make this better and really get it nailed down. Thanks for watching, and race on, friends.